like to introduce our speakers today. Matt Bergmeyer has been a frequent attender of these coffees. When he worked for a local bank, he helped us secure a grant that has been instrumental in us supplying free books to people that are starting businesses. We have 2 or 3 books that we are really fond of, and we like to be able to give people a copy, and that grant helped do that. And the grant also helped us kind of modernize some of the space you're sitting in, so we're very grateful for that grant. So thank you for that. But Matt's moved out of banking and on to his new gig now, and I'm going to let him tell you about that. But we have Matt Bergmeyer and Neil Johnson here with SmallData Tech.
Good morning. Okay. Yes, so I had been on the corner of 13th and O for about 25 years with NebHealth and some of the other student loan entities, and then First National Bank for the last 15. So I know if John gets too close, there's probably still the stink of banking on me, but
You said that.
yes. So then I moved over about 3 months ago. I've known Neil for quite a while through events like this, and had been banking him for a couple years, and knew that he was getting ready, in addition to Phoenix Web Group, to launching this new entity. And I had just told him, well, you're kind of the mad scientist with all the ideas. I think you kind of need someone to keep you on track. I'd be interested. Think about it. He said, well, okay, do it. So here I am. I've kind of led a dual life all my life. You know, I grew up in Dorchester, so you know, a class of 18, but you know, I was the banker's kid, so the town was on the north side of the highway, but we were in the suburb, you know, with Ford. Came to UNL. I was in an East Campus fraternity, but I was, you know, a business major, so you know, drive to campus all day, and then even in banking, being at a nationally chartered bank, trying to embrace and get to know the startups and entrepreneurs. A lot of times that isn't a real good fit. You know, sometimes it's not easy to be bankable at that stage, but just giving a lot of advice and looking at business plans, etc. So, with that, I've moved to the dark side, so here I am. But loving every minute of it, frightening and fascinating every single day. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today is LoRa, which is just a network, very prevalent in Europe, not as prevalent in the United States yet, but it's coming. So I want to make you aware of all the different widgets and stuff that can take advantage of it. In Denmark, for example, you might have 1 million people in a very small area, and the government has established this antenna system to where your refrigerator will tell you when it's broke, or it will tell you when you're out of eggs, or it'll tell you when your milk is spoiled. I mean, your whole way of life, all these gadgets, use this LoRa network. It's essentially stronger than Wi-Fi, but cheaper than cellular. And so there's kind of a blend there and it's pushing small data. It's not pushing Netflix videos. So from that perspective, what we're focusing on is rural Nebraska certainly has a great need for, a lot of times cellular coverage is scarce. So we've got some products put together as far as water resource or utilities and all these various things. And so from that perspective, in the next 2 years, there's going to be 1 billion products and applications hooked up to a LoRa network somewhere globally. So we'll give you a chance to kind of be aware of what the network involves, and then the various products that you can help create, et cetera. So we have some products that establish the network, but then you can use your own as well. So with that, I will let Neil talk now about all the secret sauce behind LoRa and SmallData Tech.
Okay. Hi, I'm Neil. So I'm just a nerd that found out about some stuff and tried to figure out ways to take advantage of it and make sure that it was going to be something that would help out farmers, because I'm a small town kid, and I think about that stuff a lot. Essentially, I guess what we should probably do is, here, wait, I should see what I'm talking about. We should probably talk about LoRa first, because LoRa is in fact a specification. The LoRaWAN specification is a way to get information from, well, usually it's the theoretical limit is like 15 kilometers in Europe, which is about 9 miles here. And the way it works is it's called chirp technology, so it has this weird frequency chirping thing that happens. And if any of you have like water meters and the the thing that's on there and reads the water meter, that is also chirping technology in the ISM band, but it's probably not LoRa because that stuff is fairly new and radical because of all the encryption that's placed on all the packets. So the real cool thing about LoRa, which I didn't really understand until we got thrown in the middle of it, is that each individual node, wherever that may be, has its own address, it's got its own encryption, it's got all this other stuff, and all that is maintained and taken care of at the server level upstream. Essentially, if you have a LoRa device that takes in information and spews it back out, you can put on one of these D-cell sized batteries that has 19,000 milliamp hours or 19 amp hours, as the case may be. And those things will last for theoretically 10 years or until the Earth gets blown away or whatever. So that's kind of cool. So the idea that we're looking at is putting stuff out in the middle of nowhere, hooking it up to these batteries, and then they just chirp away every like 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever. We pick up the data, bring it back, and then send it off to whoever it is that we're contracting with. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say about it, except for it's on the ISM band, which is essentially free. The way it's set up is periodically you can only take up a certain amount of bandwidth and a certain amount of time slice, so that you're not wrecking everybody else's life. And this all makes sense. I mean, the whole thing makes sense. It is crazy in Europe. In the Netherlands, they have it everywhere. It is literally everywhere, and it's amazing. And nobody here even knows it exists, which is kind of weird to me. But I guess actually, because I didn't know it existed like a couple years ago. The other thing we were working on was something different in the ISM band that we were working on for 5 years to try and figure out how to actually get, once again, the data from someplace to someplace else. But that's a sort of a mesh network, and it uses higher power radios, and there's other things that are not as advantageous as LoRa is. And so when we had the opportunity, we have a big client. Can you say that yet? Okay, we have a big client that we're rolling out coverage for in Nebraska and the western third of Kansas and Florida, and I'm going down to Arizona in a couple weeks to oversee the initial deploy of the network down there. So it's going to be crazy. And in a couple, 3 years, this technology is going to pretty much take over IoT, because first of all, it's won the fight. The whole war is pretty much over on the 3 or 4 different methodologies of using IoT for low power, wide area networks. And there's a lot of big players that are doing it. In the US, there are 3 spectacularly large people that are doing it. The 800-pound gorilla in the space is called Senetco, or Senet. They used to do, heating oil up in Maryland. Was it Maine? I think it was Maryland, New Hampshire, one of those places over there. And when they figured out this whole thing with the chirping stuff, they thought, you know what, we could probably make a lot of money doing this all over the place. So they've got LoRa installations and coverage all up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. Or hi.
Can you explain, okay, what kind of data is being used on these networks, and then how you work? People are making money on it. I guess,
Sure.
Is it I'm wondering in my mind, is it a replacement then for cell coverage, or we've got a farm out by in Cass County,
Sure.
we get our cellular coverage from an antenna on
Yep.
top of Round the Bend Restaurant.
Right.
And so is it gonna replace that sort of internet service? You know, is this an internet service provider, or are you gathering information from machines? Like John Deere has a network where all their machines can report data in
Exactly.
electronically and
Mhm.
massage it. And, you know, how is it being used?
Yep. My turn. So, so a lot of our niche is in agriculture. So for precision ag, you as a farmer may have hired a crop consultant, and you pay them per field. You might have soil moisture probes. You might have 3 of those in the field. One maybe up on the ridge, and maybe 2 others if you've got different soil content. You might have one that measures the depth of the well. You want to make sure there's not any major fluctuations there. And you see here some of the products we have. One is kind of an electronic ear for an irrigation well, which will either determine if it's on or off, because in some places you're in a regulatory place where you can only run it certain times of the day. It also listens to the signature of that motor, so that if it's running rough, it'll give you a heads up that something bad's happening. So all these various things that are attached right now, you might have 5 sensors in one field. Each of those sensors is hooked up to a cellular data packet, and each one of those costs you $150 a year. With our process through LoRa, all 5 of those sensors, and actually up to 32 sensors in a field, can pool up into one node, and then from there, our base antenna does not have to be line of sight, so it can get through the corn canopy and go over hills, etc. It bounces out to our first repeater antenna, and then we have this network across the state for other repeaters, ultimately driving it down into a cell tower, into a fiber line back to our ship. So rather than 5 times 150, it's 1 times $50 a year. So you're saving twofold. So for year 1 for the 2018 growing season, we've got the Nebraska-Kansas infrastructure, and even for our clients that are out of network, we've got, you might have those still 5 sensors, we can wrap all them up into one cell package. So you're 1 times 150 instead of 5 times 150. So here again, another way to take advantage of that. Because of that, one of our clients is able to charge a lot less on their consulting services, and so their pricing this year is actually half of what it was last year. So you can bring 2 fields on for the same price, and they've got a very dynamic program as far as the circle for the pivot. I mean, the pie chart will have up to 100 different color codes on. If your base is 1 inch of moisture, well, you might only put 40 hundredths here and 1.5 inches here, whatever. So you're truly maximizing your water only where it's needed, and that way it's not running into the ground needlessly, or depleting your nitrogen, all those type of things. Nebraska has 115,000 irrigation wells. So from that perspective, as we work with the NRDs to help them monitor those, for a lot of them, it's a matter of an NRD rep physically going to that well and checking it once or twice a year. Well, with the camera, the meter cap we can put on it, they can get daily information. So from that perspective, some of these wells are in depleted water areas where they're under regulation on how much they can have. So those farmers have to implement this, and there are others that are proactive that want to. So a lot of our initial phase is in the ag sector, but there are there's medical applications. There's we can eventually get into the urban areas so that people in Lincoln and Omaha can apply it too. Certainly for this first year, we've got 10 clients and 10,000 end users, so that I only have to worry about billing for 10 people. Ultimately, if I were to offer to all of you, then I have to ramp up my billing and things like that. But it's very exciting. Like I said, if you've got, I was talking to a doctor, their pacemaker data download every week. He says sometimes we've got folks that have to drive 5 miles just to get a decent cell signal to then download their information. So we're talking though about possibly creating this. I don't want to be in charge of someone in ICU. So from that perspective, yeah, the SmallData is truly just monitoring wells or engines or any fuel tank gauge. A local co-op might say, I put this on a propane tank. That way, I don't have to drive out there and see if it's full or empty. I can have it tell me when it's ready to go. Some of the rural water districts where you've got the guy that drives around to listen to the chirp on the water meter, we can actually let our antenna listen for that chirp so you don't have to drive around. Here again, saving time and money and mileage and all that stuff. So it's got a lot of potential in numerous applications. Yes, John?
One of the things I understand with fleet management, say something about, is that like trucking the whole thing of fleets, which you can then monitor? Because I know they do some monitoring now, but how does your product require that?
We don't have anything per se. I'm just saying, that is something that's prevalent over in Europe as far as, they do help coordinate that. And it can be your smoke alarms at home. It can be your burglar detection. It can be turning lights on and off. It's sky's the limit. Yeah.
In a lot of the rural areas, especially in the Midwest, there's, as far as broadband internet service is concerned, there's a lot of wireless internet service providers have built out. Are you working with them at all to help deliver your service into those areas, working with their customers to collaborate with those IoT devices?
We're partnering with one of the family companies that helps own Nebraska Link. And so from that perspective, they've got their niche where they've got telephone and cable services for their area. And then from that perspective, we're going to use some of their cell towers for our repeaters, et cetera, and then drop in for the fiber. But they have also said, we've got some applications that we want to use, in our community, and so this would be another way for them to piggyback onto it. And then we'll use them as we go into other states, either for their peer networking on the data or the relationships they have, those type of things. Nebraska is a little unique with the 23 different NRD districts. So from that perspective, 80% of the data that we transmit to them is standardized, but each district wants that last 20% published a little bit different way. And here again, that's where Phoenix Web can come in, and Phoenix has been working with NRDs for a number of years to where they can provide custom software application for that as well and get it tweaked the right way that they want it.
Very nice.
Yes?
Was this invented like in the Netherlands or in Europe? Is that why they're so far ahead, or?
Correct, yes. France. But even though it's French, we still like it. So. Obviously used for non-military.
Like reputation.
You got it.
I got it.
Okay, real quick. So, not broadband.
No.
It's like little tiny packets of data, like 5 bytes, 90 bytes. Really, all we're trying to do is just get information from the thing saying like 29 or whatever it has to say. That's it. So, one of the other things that we're, oh, sorry.
Looks very natural.
Thank you. Thank you. I go for natural. So one of the things that we've been working with is, can't say this either. So ear tags on cattle to do multiple different things that I can't talk about. But yeah, that too.
There is a lot of tech in use in those places that
Yeah.
not a lot of people realize if they haven't
Yes.
been directly involved in it.
Right. The thing that we're bringing to the table is the capability of covering a huge amount of area for like dirt cheap because of the whole mesh network thing. So the backbone is what differentiates us from regular LoRa networks. Our backbone is a mesh network that runs over the same band, and so it essentially goes from the top of an elevator to the top of another elevator and all over creation. And then we're going to ground, or the internet where, that's what we say.
Yep.
We're going to ground about 6 places in Nebraska. So that's gonna cut, instead of having, to pay for internet for, 200 different spots, we're doing 6. We like that.
Well, I know with broadband coverage, the trick is that is line of sight around that.
Exactly.
So that does limit certain areas that are very difficult to get into.
Sure.
A lot of towns are in big valleys, so trying to first of all, find access points that have the right elevation, be able to see a lot of people. That's why I asked the whisper question. I work with a lot
Right.
of them.
Yeah,
That's
it's
always
a-
their challenge, is finding, there's typically only going to be one grain lag or one water tower in the area that has the good coverage. So
Yep.
working with them to co-locate in the same space. The fact that your band is so separated, much lower on
Oh,
the
yeah, it's like
spectrum,
1/3, and that's why we don't have to worry about line of sight stuff.
which is fantastic.
Yeah, it was surprising to me, the way that it just gets through. I mean, even if your signal strength is lower than the noise, which may or may not make sense to a lot of people, if it's lower than the noise, that it still works. And I have no idea how that's just like black magic. I have no idea.
You apply to the dairy industry as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, in Minnesota, they do robotic milking,
Mhm.
3 collars tag, and it's actually a company out of the Netherlands. And they have-
Really, it's not Sensitera, is it? Oops. Okay, good.
They have, okay, but they literally have an app on which collars being built, which one
Right,
is it?
where they're at.
Where they're at.
Last time they've been, yep, that's the type of stuff we're talking about.
The ear tag for the cattle, they already use the LoRa network, but they upload the data through a cell package, so, we're talking to them, we might be able to, because they're in the same boat. Sometimes they have poor cell reception, so. The LoRa protocol in and of itself has 3 levels of encryption, and then through our process, we've got another 2 in there as well, so the data is certainly safe and goes to the right people at the right time.
You don't have to worry about your cattle doing a DOS attack on somebody. Because that's not cool.
DOS by cow.
Right.
And the one farmer approached us, not so much even the Fitbit, but just to monitor the cattle if they have not gone to the feed or the water tank in the last 24 hours, they know something's up. So go find the critter as opposed to just get on their horse every day and check them out.
Right, or water tanks, right? Water tanks in Cherry County, if they, for some reason, the windmill stops spinning, or the pitman arm breaks, or whatever. Pitman arm, huh? I know that, right? So, if for some reason any of that stuff goes south, then you'll be able to tell without driving 30 miles out and going, oh, yeah, it's working, and then driving 30 miles back, because that just seems crazy.
So as for people in this room, what are you looking for that could help you? Would it be huge rural operations, big farms, partnerships? I mean, like what is your, I guess, kind of sales process?
Why
of
we
the
come
type-
here in the first place?
No, I think it's really awesome.
We thought it would be fun to talk about, right?
But I mean,
We
it
need
just
the
kinda-
practice.
It gets your brain spinning of all these things
Yeah.
you know of going on in Nebraska and, surrounding
Well, this is the
areas.
first actual public reveal of this. It's been a big secret for like the last 4 years, and you guys are the first to know.
I mean, it's super cool. Are you looking for big farms or?
Not anymore.
They got them covered.
Yeah, we got a lot of, what I really would like to do is see some of this stuff, like, so, I'm a geek, right? So I like to do cool experiments and stuff. There's a lot of LoRa devices that you can just go and buy that monitor like temperature, whatever. And you can like do really cool things with them. And the LoRa protocol is universal, so we can just read those things, and then it's just.
So it's kind of expanding into different
Yeah, I just
areas
would
of
like to make sure that
technology.
everybody understands that this is gonna be available pretty quick. And so if you wanna do something, it's gonna be dirt cheap. Yeah.
Once the network is up and running, certainly, and as we let the
Next
people
week.
of Lincolnites, whatever, know, there's 200 engineering students that, like salivating, I can use this for something. So yeah, if you have products or applications that somehow, could possibly tie into this might be another avenue for you instead of a cellular or Wi-Fi package.
And Lincor has their monitoring, especially on the environmental side, they have a lot of monitoring devices, literally in Alaska, in tundra country, where they're monitoring all that. Is this an application for them?
Very much so. And our goal is, to hit all the flyover states, as we go. Like I said, we're gearing up for the 2018 growing season, Nebraska, Kansas, and then exploring which states go.
I'm thinking the cold weather we've had in Nebraska, and I've talked to more than a few people that have had issues with frozen pipes and stuff.
Mhm.
Conceivably, could you use this system to monitor pipes in a house that's vacant or something,
Mhm.
and then alert you that, hey, these pipes are about ready to freeze up, and
Sure. We have an application that we're contracted to one of the NRDs to monitor their rural water district. And as a part of that, there's algorithms we're building in to keep track of all of the day-to-day, typical water flows into those particular buildings. And so we have got it set up so that, okay, so we're monitoring their water flow once every 3 hours. So every single one of those meters gets read every 3 hours as opposed to once a month. So in the middle of the night, if for some reason you have a particular thing that's, the water flow is continuing, then there's a couple things, right? It's either you've got a busted pipe or somebody's toilet's still running, or something like that, right? So this is an application of that. Plus, they've also got leaks in the mains that we're helping them try and zero in on. So the main meter, which is up way at the south end of the thing, monitors everything that comes in, and then there's a couple other meters upstream, and so then we do, math, and then figure out where, if there's any leakage, then we can at least identify the section. And they don't even have that now, because right at this point, they're like, I don't know, we don't even know who's using water.
You reached out to TransCanada.
yeah. I was gonna say, so
No,
that's-
but somebody else that's, we also can't talk about. I'm so sorry. Hi.
So, maybe a question, 2 questions. One is, have you talked to Brian Health about potential distance health applications? Because that might be a really great opportunity.
Yeah, we've got a meeting set up in 2 weeks to explore something along those lines, yes.
Okay.
Oh, so you can talk about it.
Well, a medical.
I have a weird question. Okay, so if I'm understanding you right, let's say I had this great idea to create an app for fishermen where they could get real-time temperatures of area lakes. Okay, and I came to you and I said, hey, I think I want to do that. Would I already have to have in place like my equipment and the app and all that, and you provide the data only? Or would the application be something that from geekdom you would have an interest in pursuing?
Well, we're pretty nerdy. The PWG is essentially a collection of developers, and I'm kind of I am in fact a mad scientist. So if you have something that you think is really awesome, and like the thing you were just talking about, I think it's a really good idea. If you want to talk about it, I'll talk to you about it.
Pig Patrol,
What? Wait, what?
it's free, gratis, for fishing equipment.
All right.
We can talk after.
Okay, sounds great.
Second question, is your competitive advantage just speed to market or something else?
We have 2 advantages. First of all, we're not first to market. Senetco is the first to market. They've been doing LoRa deploys for the past 3 years fairly intensively. They got, I think they're in 3rd round funding. What they supply is the back end. So they supply the servers and the APIs that feed data back to whoever it is that's consuming it. Now, our advantages is twofold. First of all, we have the whole backbone thing that they can't do, which is why we got these big gigs in the first place. Because out here in the sticks where we live, there's not enough population concentration to have these gateways like every 3 miles, because that's just not happening. Works great in Europe, and not only that, but the European governments are the ones who've bought them in the first place. So that's not happening here, and it's not going to happen. So what we have, once again, is the advantage that we have this mesh network back in, so that we can take over where Senetco actually can't do stuff. And once again, that's how we got that gig. Plus, we've designed we designed all electronics. We've designed all of the hardware. Because we have to, because nobody makes it here. So we're until somebody else steps up and starts making hardware that actually works in using LoRa, then like, might as well be us. Eventually, we want to try and kind of back off from the hardware stuff and just do the network, because that's where it's at.
The suite of products here helps us get off the ground because they're either cheaper or better or both than some of the competition out there, but ultimately there will be more competition on the hardware side, so that's certainly we want to be a data transmission network, which also sells hardware on the side. So our contact information is at the bottom. There's not a website listed. It's not live yet. I said we're just kind of getting off the ground on that, but if you have any rich farmer relatives, we're still looking for a little funding, but we're up and running. So.
Did great. Oh, Brad.
So what are your risks?
Our risks at this point in time are not getting the network rolled out in time. That's the biggest risk. April?
Mother Nature.
Yes, we've got, I mean, the crop year's starting and we've got to make that target. So, fortunately for us, covering Nebraska, we did a topographic study to make sure that we understood exactly where to put all of our nodes so we could cover the maximum amount of area, blah, blah, blah. And the GIS guy said, okay, you need 80 of them. And I said, okay, let's make 200, because reality will always trump GIS. So we're spinning up 200 of those because, like I said, I don't trust anything. I've been in business for a really long time, and the way you stay in business is by anticipating risk and trying to counter it before it counters you. So that's our biggest risk. That and somebody coming and throwing a bunch of lawyers at us, but I think it may be too late now for that. So that's good.
And what I like so far is, we have some private clients that can certainly have a little more rapid reaction, but we also have a nice niche in the public sectors that once they've gone through all their budget process, then you get a revenue stream that's locked in for hopefully long term as well. So.
Any other questions?
Laura.
Are you making money?
Not yet, but we hope to when we grow up.
Me too.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we'll see how that works out. But yeah, we have a bunch of contracts, so theoretically, we're gonna be making money pretty quick.
Yeah. With the hardware package, December 31, I expect to see black numbers, not red. So.
Awesome.
Ta-da.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, John.
Sure.
Want to present Matt and Neil Focus Sweet mug to enjoy your coffee. This is thanks for being here.
It smells like scotch. It will.
It will. All right. We'll be here again next week, so please come back next week for John Fullwider. And please feel free to hang around as long as you like, visit with one another, network, exchange those business cards. We'll see you next week.
John will have the second best of 2018.
Guaranteed, it won't be as good as that.
Hey.